You're listening to Fresh Look with Mazzig, presented by the Israel on Campus Coalition. Welcome back to Fresh Look. On episode 13, you'll hear from Swell Ariel Or, the star of the hit Netflix series The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. In the show, Swell plays Luna Armoza, the daughter of Gabriel and Hila. You'll hear from Swell about her role in the hit series and her take on Judaism and Israel. We're honored to have Swell join us for episode 13 of Fresh Look. Welcome to the show, Swell.
I am so excited for this interview, specifically this podcast episode, because we're speaking with one of my favorite people and a person I've been a fan of for so long. Hello, Swell. How are you?
Hey, Chen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for this conversation, not just because we're friends and it's always fun to talk and to speak to you, but also because I'm very, very much excited for you to host me in your podcast. I love your podcast and I think it's very important and I'm super excited.
Oh, thank you so much. It's such a young age. You've accomplished so much, and I've been, as I said, a fan for a long time, but I'm especially enjoyed The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem, and we're speaking today just ahead of the second season being aired on Netflix. The first season is already available on Netflix International. Second season is coming out. And I think that your role in The Beauty Queen of Jerusalem is so interesting. The story itself is very interesting, but I think your role specifically has so much depth into it, and it's also intertwining with your identity as well. But let's start there. I want you to tell us a bit about the role itself. You play the daughter of a Sephardic family who speaks Ladino, and they're portrayed as part of an ancient community in Jerusalem. People think that Jews just arrived in Jerusalem about 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Tell us about the role.
First of all, it's based on a book, so I had a lot to research inside the book, and I highly recommend to read the book beside the show, because you know how books are. It's like you have more to the story, but the story itself is very interesting because it describes the Sephardic community in Jerusalem, and a lot of people don't know that Jews were here for generations. It's called I don't know how to say it in English, like the Yishuv Ayashan.
Yeah, the old Yishuv.
Yeah, the old Yishuv. It's mostly around the 18th century. And it was like a big wave of Jewish communities coming to Israel, Jerusalem, from countries all over the world, whether it was because they suffer from anti-Semitism there, or they just had a dream of next year in Jerusalem. But it was a big, big wave of communities. And because Israel was not a solid country yet, so they really guarded and saved their own traditions. For example, the Armoza family are Sephardic and they speak Ladino, which is a mixed language of Hebrew and Spanish. And sort of like they had their own prayers, or I don't know, you had the Sephardic community, you had the Ashkenazi community in Tzfat that you can also see in the show, and you had a lot of communities that came from the Arab countries next to the borders. But yeah, it was very interesting to learn about this period, because I don't think the Sephardic community, especially in those years, are known and or represented in the Israeli TV and films. So I'm very proud of this show.
And before we dive into the show, let's talk more about the show itself. I think the role that you play in of Luna is really, it's kind of similar to your own story. Your family is from Yemen, Iraq, and Ukraine. Am I right?
Yes. It is similar because of the subject itself, like the story itself. Luna was born into a Sephardic, like pure blood Sephardic, so she's not mixed. But the overall story really touches the diversity of that time and how complicated it was inside the Jewish community to have a romantic relationship or marriage between Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews. And today, I grew up in a time and place that we are all, like, most of us are mixed. Kibbutz galuyot. I don't know how to say that term.
Yeah, I think people, I mean, it means bringing together the diaspora, right? The diaspora communities.
Yes. And it took some time to get to this place. And it's not where it needs to be yet. We still have a lot of work to do because you don't see it really in the show, but the Sephardi community, the Mizrahi community, suffered from a lot of, I don't know if I can say racism in this term, but they suffered,
or being othered.
yeah, or used to be treated with a lot worse. They used to be treated a lot worse than Ashkenazi. Like, you don't see it in the show a lot, but it happened. So it's not only the hatred and the fear of blending, it's also you have a difference of classes. I don't know how to.
Yeah, class, I guess. Yeah, and I think it's such an important point and something that Israel has come a long way since the time of the show. And I mean, but when we're looking at Israel today and comparing it to the time of the show, I think it's very different. And the Beauty Queen starts with the first episode. I think addresses the oppression of the Ottoman Turks that they placed on the Jewish community in Jerusalem in World War II, World War I. I mean, and frequently it addresses the tension by the Jewish Israelis, well, the Jewish communities under the British mandate back then. And I want you to talk a bit about that because we're so used. I mean, people like us from our generation are so used to having Israel as a free country, as an independent country, but it wasn't always the case because Israel has been colonized and controlled by other powers, and you see that in the show, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are two levels in it because we have a trauma as Jews that we are being controlled. We have it in ancient Egypt, and we have the Holocaust, and we have a lot of other small different examples. Like, those are the highlights. And the another layer of it is Israel, like the country itself. And I think that we can learn from what the show touches in terms of like the British mandate and the Ottoman Empire is that we were so strong and united in terms of we want to get our country back to our own hands, and we managed to kick out the Queen's army, okay? One of like the biggest armies. And I think that today people tend to forget because we are third generation. We hear mostly stories about that time and how it was to be under someone else's control. We can't even imagine that. And I think it's very important to remember that because the most important thing is the biggest lesson is that no one from outside can know what it is to be here and can know what we need and can solve our problems. No one can do it, not the Queen's Army or British people, not the Ottoman Empire, and it goes way back. And I think it's very relevant because a lot of people today, whether is it private people, governments, politicians, they think that they know what we need, and if they were here, they could have solved it, and blah 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 blah. And it's so not true. No one from outside can understand what we need and how to solve our problems and what it is to be here, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such an important point because when we're talking about imperialism, imperialism is telling other people in far off lands what they need to do and what's good for them. And I think it's just a new version of it. And I think it's also interesting what you're talking about, how the Jews in the old Yeshuv were fighting against this imperial power, the Queen's army. And it's often people think that, you know, there's a difference when you're fighting for your land and you're fighting for Israel, because that's the only land you have. You don't have anywhere. We didn't have anywhere else to go, right? All those communities came back to their home because they were thrown out, and they fought against a foreign army that had a place to go to. And I think that when we're seeing today the conversation around Israel, some people almost think that if the Jews just, you know, pack their bags and go somewhere else, that, I mean, first of all, we don't have anywhere else to go, and also this is our home, right?
Yeah, this is our home. And of course, every home and every family, we have problems. Not everything is 100% perfect, but you can't know what we need if you even haven't been here once. It's so easy to tell us what we should do and how we should behave as Jews, yeah, of course, and also as Israelis or Israel. I don't know, like you can, it goes either way.
Right. And I feel like do you experience that online or in conversation abroad of people that you feel like are preaching to you what you need to do and what Israel needs to do while they're not really part of this?
The funniest thing is that I get a lot of messages from people that obviously never visited here. Like I check their profile, like to see if they are, I don't know, they like to travel to the Middle East or they have any interest of, I don't know. And it's so far from being here or reading about it or being involved truly with consuming information about the area. So, and I'm getting a lot of messages from that kind of people criticizing me because I uploaded a photo and tagged the Kinneret, Israel, or I shared something about my country or my army, my soldiers. I know it's not easy, but it's my country. It's the army that I served in. It's my people. If you have criticism, it's okay, but you cannot tell me what do I need to do or write or say or think about my country, my people, the army that I served in. You cannot do that. You're not better than me.
Wow,
and I think that's like when we were controlled by the British mandate or the Ottoman Empire or blah 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 blah. It's because they think that they know better than you what you need, what this country, what this land need. I know it's a very, very, how do you say tosses? Like
inflammatory kind of, or yeah, it's bubbling below the surface.
Yeah, it's a very hot place, this land, literally the land itself. But you cannot come here and try to tell me how I need to treat my land or my country, or, you know, that's very important to remember.
Wow, that's such an perfectly put point, I think, and so it's such an important one. And I mean, you're someone that is very committed to also your land. You served in the intelligence unit in the army, and I mean, tell me about the connection to Israel. I want to hear more about that. What is Israel for you? What does that mean for you?
First of all, it's home. I was born here, raised here. even if I'll go live outside for a little bit, I'll always come back here eventually. I want to die here. And it's also a very, very big and important source of inspiration to my art. I think we have everything here. We have, unfortunately, it's true, but we have chaos, and we have desert, and we have forest, and we have the sea, and we have blood people like Alcim, and we have like crazy tech mind people that are doing crazy things all over the world, and we have the best food, we have the best artists and musicians, and I think it's an identity. Israel, it's an identity that you can choose to be a part of. You can take, you know.
I love that. That's beautiful. And you know, you're an actress with such an international profile, and it's growing all the time. You were just
Hamza.
Hamza. You were just on a show on Disney Channel as well in Brazil, was it?
Yeah, it's not aired yet, but
okay. Tell us about that a bit.
ooh,
Or you can't. I mean, whatever you can share with us.
I think I can share some. I think I can share. It's for Disney Plus, and it's every episode sends by itself. And I'm playing in the episode called Israel. Of course, they needed an Israeli actress, and they auditioned me for a while. It was hard. And when I read the script, first of all, it was in Portuguese, and I was like, what? So they gave me a teacher, and I learned everything. And it was crazy. It was really crazy. But when I got there and we had a meeting about the script, they were so warm and open. So I said, I'll be chutzpanit. It's fine. Because I read the script and I saw there's the episode literally called Israel, and they had no scene touching anything traditional about, I don't know, the smallest thing, and it's literally called Israel. So I suggested that we can add something, maybe, I don't know, a small prayer, a ritual that she's like the character is doing, and or maybe like lighting the Shabbat candle, because the story is that she's going to from Israel to Brazil. And there's a small ceremony with her and her mom lighting the Shabbat candle, and they were so open and warm, and literally they added the scene, like 4-minute scene.
Wow.
They were so curious about, they didn't know what lighting a Shabbat candle is. They didn't know. It's crazy. But it's gonna be amazing.
Wow. What's the name of the show?
How to be Carioca. Like
How
Carioca.
Amazing. Wow. I can't wait to watch it. And it's so incredible, like to have the ability to influence. And I think we all can do it in our own life and in our own spaces, just to add something that is Jewish, or bringing our identity outward and not be ashamed of it. It's such an incredible story. And I think it's
We have
just
such a beautiful tradition, and people just don't know enough about it sometimes. It's just that they don't know enough.
right. And I think
And
they
they
want
can,
when
of
when you
course they want.
yeah.
And by accident, I'm an actress, and it's in an episode about Israel, but anyone can do it in their own life and environment, whether if it's like a small thing. And we can also, that's me, I think that you can let people from other religions to be a part of the ceremony.
Inviting them in.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful, because Judaism is spiritual more than everything.
Right.
And I don't think it's that selective. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. And I think it's for us, for Israelis, it's easier for us to see Judaism as part of our identity, that it's spiritual and you don't have to be um, really religious or consider yourself religious to practice our tradition. It's tradition that we
Exactly.
from generations. So yeah.
It's much more spiritual than religious.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm fully with you on that. But that's such an incredible story. But I wonder if you ever experience um, pushback or the artistic communities in America or around the world welcoming Israelis, or do you find that some areas are a bit tricky, or you had to walk on eggshells or anything like that?
In my case, I'm not just Israeli, I'm also very pro-Israel
Mm,
out loud.
right.
So it's more than that because I see a lot of Israeli artists, um, whether is it writers, actors, singers, that they just don't want to be involved in this type of conversation, and they're just slowly deleting their Israeli identity so they can be part of the American industry in their
Mm,
own field. Um, and I don't judge them. I really don't judge them. I think America is scary, and sometimes she can eat you. It can eat you without salt, which is a very beautiful phrase in Hebrew that I love. Um, but I did experience negative reactions to my opinions and to my statements. I'm not scared of it. I think that it may be the only thing that I think of is that it may be a longer way to get to where I want to get. Maybe, but I'll get there and I'll represent Israel with all my heart wherever I go, and I'll bring the Oscar home finally. I'll be better than all this politics and I'll bring the Oscar home. Amen
thank
to that.
you. Bezrat Hashem.
Bezrat Hashem.
Amen. I'm praying for that. And I just have a couple more questions, and then
Yeah,
we'll.
of course.
But I really wanted to talk more about the Beauty Queen of Jerusalem. And sorry, before I ask that, just to say that it's so important, and to hear you being so openly pro-Israel and openly Israeli and not being afraid of it or ashamed or apologetic about it. I think it's something that we need, and just hope that if there's any producer listening to this podcast, that they will give you a call or contact
Please do.
to get you that Oscar, because you need that, you deserve that. But I want to go to ask, as I was saying, one more question about the Beauty Queen of Jerusalem, because part of the stories in one of the scenes that we've seen was the horrors that the Jewish family was facing in a pogrom where Palestinian Arabs attacked this Jewish home, the Jewish homes in the Yishuv. How have these formative experiences from the mandatory period impacted the Jewish-Arab relationships, do you think, to this day? I mean, was there any continued effect that we are seeing until today, or do you think it's something that happened in the past, and that's it?
I think that it's what we see today is a result of that period directly. It's a direct result of what happened there, because it was like two brothers with an unfunctional parent trying to make peace at the house. It's not gonna work. And the show really touches how it was when it's not all Arabs attacking all Jews all the time. It's small groups that are very frustrated or angry, and they are attacking each other, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. And it's what we are cut up in today, and we were been always cut up into this situation. And we have to change that. It's been a century. It's not all the Arab against all the Jews. It's not. It's small extreme groups, and it really creates a lot of fear and a lot of distance between brothers, I mean, or cousins, or you can call it whatever.
Right. And do you see a way or a path where there will be peace in this region?
Um,
Or do you hope for one?
I know I don't know enough
Mm.
to really talk about it, but I do want to say that I believe that if we will be in a situation that we have two countries for two people, two how do you say? I mean,
People, yeah.
people, two countries, two people, and together fighting the terror organizations,
Mm.
there will be a way to have a peace, because I think that it's not only the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's also the fact that the terror organizations are controlling a lot of what's going on there. And whether is it in terms of education, they're educating the young people to hate us, to attack us, to fight against us. Of course, not everyone, but there are extreme communities, and they control the money that Palestinian people are getting. They control the sachar,
Yeah.
yeah, they control a lot of
Mm.
what's going on there, and we have to stop it.
Mm. Yeah, that's really important point. I mean, you can be pro-peace, pro-Israel, pro-Palestinians, but you know, we are all fighting against this terror organization. We should all stand against them. And I feel like often
Yes,
forgotten that, you know, it's not just that there's two sides here. There's a third side, which are terror groups that their
yes,
goal is to maintain this conflict, is to never achieve peace. And that's what, you know, I think many Israelis and a lot of Palestinians as well, I mean, they need to come together for what they really want, which is peace.
definitely. And I think that a lot of Palestinians are afraid, and I'm not judging them. I'm afraid of terror organizations. How can someone who live next door to them or being controlled by them, it's scary. I'm not blaming them. And I think that they need our support against them so they can rise up and build something that is pro peace, pro both countries, pro uniting and ending this endless fight. And I really hope I'll get to see that it will be in my life. I really hope I'll get to see that.
That and an Oscar. I'm wishing for this two things. And I love how you started with you don't know enough, and then you gave me an answer that made me want to vote for you to be a prime minister.
Really? Thank you.
um, and
No,
before,
it's too much.
yeah, I mean, being an actor, I think it's hard enough. But before I let you go, and I just have one last question, and we spoke a lot about the future and about Israel and about anti-Semitism. And I think that we are, you know, we're seeing many young Jews in America on college campuses and just generally being afraid to speak about their Jewish identity, afraid to be pro-Israel, feeling like there's so much pressure on them by anti-Semitism. What would be your advice to people, to Jews around the world, young Jews that are listening to us and are afraid to speak about their Jewish identity or afraid to support Israel because of the backlash? What type of what words can you provide to them, to the ones that are listening?
I have a few. I'll start with use the social media because it's part of your day-to-day life, and try to find people that are in the same situation or a similar situation to yours that are sharing more openly about their identity, and see how next to the bad reactions or comments they're getting a lot of support and love, and they are very confident. And I think that is it's a tool that you can use. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, find those people. Start with Tel Aviv Institute because they share a lot of those people. And the second thing is try to find friends that you can speak about it that are non-Jews or Israeli, that you can trust them and they can show you a supporting environment and a very loving environment, and they are not necessarily like you, but you can trust them. And look in the mirror and say to yourself that you are beautiful and complex and interesting, and you carry a story of generations, and it's part of your story in your life and your duty to not be ashamed of it.
Wow, that hits deep. Thank you for that. And I think, I'm sure every student that is hearing, or young people, are embracing it. And of course, if you're a student, getting involved with Israel on Campus Coalition, that is behind this podcast. But Swell, I just want to say, I mean, we're friends, and I feel like I'm biased, but I'm not really, like, being as I can. Like, you are an incredible voice for our people. You are such an amazing actor. I just admire you so much. I'm sure everyone admire you even more after listening to this podcast. We'll put the link to your Instagram and social media so people can follow you. And thank you. Just good luck with that Oscar.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing what you're doing. It's very helpful for Jews all over the world, and for Israeli that wants to know more how they can help and be united with their brothers abroad. And keep doing what you're doing. I love you, Chen.
You too. Love you loads. Thank you so much, Swell.
Thanks for joining episode 13 of Fresh Look. Be sure to subscribe to our channels and stay tuned for the next episode.